This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear, your local micropub on Southbourne Grove, where you can't watch the game, but you can definitely talk about it. Head to the White Bear on any AFCB match day wearing your team shirt and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
Here come the cherries and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, here come the Cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. Our changeling Cherries missed out on the opportunity to reach the quarter-final of the FA Cup for only the second time in history, with a 2-0 reverse to a full-strength Everton in front of an expectant national tea-time TV audience on Saturday evening. Here to shed some light on how the Wembley dream yet again slipped away is Paul Bishop.
Paul, welcome to All Departments.
Thank you, Mike.
So, when I went along to Dean Court yesterday, I felt more relaxed than normal going into the tie. I think because there weren't any Premier League points on offer. But I was quite disappointed afterwards that we've been knocked out of the FA Cup. How did you view the day as a whole?
Well, obviously, we'd all enjoy a good cup run, and it's disappointing to get knocked out by Everton, having performed so well against them the last time they came and visited us down at Dean Court. But I think, Mike, the manager's made it clear before that survival is really the main priority. So as much as we'd like a cup run, and it would have been great had we made it through and beaten Everton today, I must confess I come away thinking that I'd much prefer survival in the Premiership to any further progression in the Cup.
Yeah, I think that is probably the pragmatic view. The romantic view would be, well, we could have both, or maybe just the Cup, and, well, Wigan got relegated and have now dropped into League One on the back of their FA Cup win. I'm not sure I want that. But yeah, I think we all tend to daydream a bit about the FA Cup and think, well, you know, we get through to the sixth round, then the quarter, and then the semi-finals at Wembley. But I guess the proof of this one, much like last season, will be at the end of the season. If we stay up, then most people will shrug and say it was probably worth it in terms of getting knocked out of the Cup. Much like last year when we played a weakened team at Aston Villa. But it's still a shame we're out, but I guess the bigger picture is definitely, and certainly from the manager's point of view, the Premier League. In terms of the team, I was expecting a stronger team yesterday. He made 7 changes from the team that lost to Stoke. And I think I was expecting a stronger team because, well, we always sort of talked about a prize on offer, a place in the quarter-final. And perhaps I thought you might use it as a opportunity to experiment with perhaps a different formation, maybe 2 up front, and maybe an opportunity to let the players who lost the last 2 games find a bit of form against an Everton team which was unchanged from their last Premier League game. Were you surprised by the team yesterday?
Well, I've obviously seen some talk about how Martinez put out a strong team and we put out perhaps perceived a lesser strong team. I was more concerned about the way they went about their game rather than the actual team selection. Certainly from the beginning, we seemed to be sitting deep, welcoming Everton onto us, and that made me nervous at the beginning of the game. I'm glad Iturbe got a start. I really enjoyed the way he performed. He played really well, I felt. Had a lot of bite and attitude about his game. McDonald, I thought, played very well. My only concern around the team selection, perhaps, and the player performance, particularly for this particular game, is Daniels. He's been such a strong stalwart and an invalued member of the squad for so long now. But the past couple of times I've seen him play. He seems to have been a little bit out of sorts. I know he missed the penalty. That was unfortunate, and and it's not all about the penalty. But generally speaking, I thought the team selection was generally okay. It's more about how we went about the game and the way we played, really, that concerned me most.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Iturbe. I too, and I think like most people, was impressed with the way he played yesterday, especially in the first half. He gave Everton quite a lot to think about. They may have been thinking, who's this guy? Although you can imagine at Premier League level they have done their research. McCarthy, who ultimately gave away the penalty, was booked for pulling him back at one point. He's got lots of neat little skills, hasn't he? And he can beat his man, Iturbe. And I noticed, and he's obviously been with the club over a month now, he was tracking back a bit more. You can kind of see from the stands now what Eddie would have seen in him, can't you? Absolutely,
and I think that's a lot about his game. It's the attitude he brings to it. There's bite and tenacity to the way he plays. The number of times I saw him just get at the opposing player and not leave them alone. And as you say, tracking back, fighting for the team. It was those aspects that you see a lot in Matt Ritchie, I think, that were echoed in Iturbe's play. That I think is what appeals to the fans most. He certainly seemed to give us a good avenue down the wing he played on. Obviously cutting inside a lot rather than getting down the outside flank and putting a cross in, which I wonder if as a team we could get more crosses in for the likes of Glenn Murray when he comes on. But generally speaking, I thought he played well with his attitude and his tenacity, and that seemed to be the consensus of opinion around me as well.
Yeah, I get the feeling Eddie's been showing him video clips of people like Ritchie and saying, don't look at what he does when he goes forward, because you're good at that. That's no problem. Look at what he does when the other team have got the ball, and that's what you need to bring into your game. And you can see he did a bit of that. My favourite moment with him yesterday was, and I don't know which Everton player it was, he nutmegged an Everton player from about 10 yards away from him. He passed the ball through his legs. Do you remember that?
I think I do, yes.
It was, a surprising skill, because normally when they nutmeg, it's usually from about half a yard.
They're close, aren't they? Yeah, normally they're very, very close. And this guy was pinging it from quite some distance. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he seemed, one step ahead of the game in certain respects in that regard.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be the beginning of a period when he shines for us when he's on the pitch. And I don't know if he's going to start the next game, but he's certainly getting closer to starting a game, I think, the way things are going.
I think he deserves it, really. I really do. Like I say, that bite and tenacity about his play. Maybe it's more about getting him to fit into the squad and the team and have some time with the club before he becomes a first-choice team selection. But the way I saw him play, I'd welcome more of it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something to look forward to with him, and hopefully we'll see more of the best of him as the season goes on. And like you said, we did allow Everton to have a lot of the ball. Quite a bit of the game was played in our half. And the first real scare for us came when Tommy Elphick and Romelu Lukaku had a foot race for the ball. And Tommy had a little head start, 3 or 4 yards. But Lukaku, who is quick, although not the quickest player in the Premier League, went past Tommy. I read in the paper today, it was somebody written, Elphick looked like he was running through treacle, which was a bit harsh.
That's a bit harsh, I think. A bit harsh.
And but luckily for us, Lukaku was coming in from the angle, and he tried to be a bit too clever and dupe Federici. Federici did really well. He stuck his leg out and got a foot to it, and then gathered the ball. I mean, the goalkeeper kind of saved us at that point, didn't he?
Yeah, I like Federici. I thought he played well, really. He did very well for us between the sticks, and I think it's a bit harsh calling up Elphick on that particular race against Lukaku. I think he did very well coming back from the injury that he sustained, and he did the job for us that he normally does.
Yeah, I can't really remember exactly what happened when the ball was played to Lukaku, But even if you've got your body half turned the other way as the defender, that time it takes to turn your body and run gives the forward a little bit of, not a head start, but certainly in terms of hitting their top speed, they're ahead of you. And yeah, I mean, Lukaku, he's quick. He's quicker than Tommy. But, I mean, the key thing is he's a very effective forward, so it's no disgrace, really. But, yeah, I think Tommy's got fitter and less rusty every time I've seen him play since he's come back from injury. And that was pretty much the only mistake he made yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You can call it a mistake.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, he's up against Lukaku. He's a big unit. Like you say, he's maybe not the fastest, but he's definitely an experienced Premiership front player. And I think Tommy coped with him admirably, really. And like you say, if you call that a mistake, I think you can live with that mistake, really.
Should also at this point give special mention to Sylvain Distin, who hasn't played much recently. He's 38, which is almost, well, I might be stretching it a bit far, almost as old as me. And he was outstanding yesterday, wasn't he?
I like it when he plays. I wish he played more often. He brings to our back line just a certain measure of calm and assured quality on the ball. When it comes in high, you know that Distin's going to be there and deal with it. Yeah, there's a certain element of quality that's innate in the way he plays, and I feel comfortable when he's in our back line, definitely.
Yeah, I think he was really motivated yesterday playing against Everton. Obviously, he knows most of the players in the team. You know, he was only there last season. He seemed to read Lukaku and Lennon very well in terms of he knew what they were going to do, which obviously comes from playing with them and against them in training for a few years.
Yeah, you could see that the way they played, and it's quite nice to see, if I'm honest, the professionals talking to each other that way on the pitch. And he gave respect to the Everton fans that I noticed, and that was nice. And yeah, he's definitely a quality player for us.
Yeah, I think he could potentially get back in the team soon. I don't know what Eddie's going to do against Watford, but those centre-back positions looking... Maybe one of them might be up for grabs. Eddie might move Simon Francis back to right back. It's difficult to know. I mean, Eddie tends to be quite conservative, but I would have put Tommy ahead of Distin until yesterday. But yeah, Sylvain made a good claim for possibly getting a start, didn't he?
Well, that's it. It's all about competition for places, isn't it? And Distin coming in like that, and the way that he performs when he gets the chance to, it increases that competition and makes it difficult for the others to claim their first place. For me, I like him. I like him in the back four. So, who has to make way for him? I'm not so sure I could say, but I'm certainly happier seeing him in that back four somewhere.
Yeah, he was brilliant yesterday. Anyway, come on now to the key moment in the first half, and probably the key moment for us in the game in terms of having a chance of winning it. We did win something. We won a penalty. Charlie Daniels was involved from the start to finish in this because he took the corner, which James McCarthy inexplicably handled. I had another look today, and it was on his right forearm, which he just kind of raised towards the ball, and then the ref. Sean McDonald was the closest to McCarthy, but he wasn't under any real pressure. The ref, Ryan Agason, immediately blew up. I was down at the other end of the main stand, and at first everyone jumped up and cheered penalty, and there was a short delay. None of the Everton players protested. You expect there to be, a posse of players going towards the referee when a penalty's given. And I thought, maybe he's just blown for offside or something. But it seemed like an age before Charlie Daniels picked up the ball. But you were in the south stand, so
yeah, well,
you had a better view?
Block 2, actually. So yeah, not quite the south stand because that was full of Everton fans. But
right, of course.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I was right down that end of the pitch, and so I had a good view of it. And you're quite right. I think it's one of those ones where his arm went to the ball. I'm not so sure it was necessarily intentional as such, but the referee decided to give it. So I think that probably explains why there was perhaps a little bit of confusion on behalf of the players, insofar as they were a bit nonplussed as to was it given or not given. Thankfully, it was, and we got the spot kick.
Yeah, and hopes were high.
Yes,
at that
indeed.
Point. And then so Charlie ran over to get the ball, put it on the spot. And then it's his third penalty of the season. The previous two against West Brom, which won us the game, and I think the other one was Norwich, have hit the woodwork and then gone in. This one was never going to hit the woodwork, but he put it to Joel's left-hand side, and I mean, they're not easy to say, but it was one of those where they say it's a good height for a goalkeeper.
If you were going to give him an easy one to save, it felt like he'd given him an easy one to save. To be fair to Charlie, I think it wasn't the best of his penalty kicks. He didn't really test the keeper, didn't put it near the sticks or in a corner or toward the edge. So he gave the keeper an opportunity to save it, and that keeper took it. So it was a bit of a shame. It's definitely a turning point in the game, I think, obviously, because had we got the goal, that would have changed things. It's one of those things, uncharacteristic. It's a shame, but it did feel that he didn't hit it quite as sweetly and neatly as perhaps he normally does. And like I say, I think he just seems a little bit out of sorts at the moment, Charlie. He's just not quite giving us what he normally does, but that's testament to what he normally gives us, because what he normally gives us is 100%, and I think at the moment he's just a fractionally below that, and we need him to be 100%, and at the moment I'm not quite sure he's there, and it's one of those things. He missed the penalty. You're not going to hold it against the player, obviously, but unfortunately for us, it was one of those key moments in the game.
Yeah, it was analysed quite closely on Match of the Day last night. They don't normally spend much time analysing our games at all. Well, they do, but it's normally about the opposition.
Yes.
And they had Mark Schwarzer on, who's now at Leicester, although he doesn't play much. And he was saying that he thought Joel did really well, and he moved at the right time, and because Charlie was left-footed, it would have been difficult for Charlie to shoot the other way. I didn't really agree with any of that. I mean, Schwarzer's a professional goalkeeper. I'm just a guy who watches people play football. But that seemed a bit of an odd analysis. But anyway, regardless of that, it still didn't go in. And then we had a rebound immediately after that. And 4 of our players, I had a look today and wrote down who they were. Charlie Daniels himself, Simon Francis, Josh King, and Wanai Turve, who I think had the final touch, all tried to kick the ball then into the net, and it it didn't go in. I think it hit the side netting, and that was the moment that I realised the chance had escaped us. And like you said, I mean, if you're a penalty taker, unless you're like Matthew Letizia or somebody, you're going to miss a penalty sooner or later, at least maybe once or twice a season. But yeah, once we hit the side netting, my immediate feeling is this is going to come back to haunt us. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think actually to go back to the way in which the penalty was taken, he was hesitant, wasn't he? He kind of started his run up, paused, ran up again, paused again, like he was trying to second guess the keeper. I'm not so sure I recognise that as being the way he normally takes his penalties. Normally he'd step up, thump it in the back of the net. So maybe in that respect, the way in which he took that penalty wasn't to the best of his ability, and gave the keeper a head start in that way. Insofar as the follow up, I think that was just a normal goalmouth scramble because the ball came out. Everyone's gone to try and put a foot on it. Unfortunately, no one got there cleanly enough. So I think that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, not a lot more
yesterday anyway. I'm sure Charlie will get another chance to put that right, maybe in the last game of the season and keep us up. That'd be fantastic.
I'm sure he will.
And that was it really for the first half. The half kind of fizzled out after that. And then it was half time. There was just one other thing from the first half I wanted to mention, which was we talked about Charlie, and you said you thought he might have been, only playing at 90% the last couple of games. Eddie signed the ever popular Royce Wiggins to replace him, and yesterday was the first time that Wiggins has appeared at Dean Court since he's been signed. When he was signed, there was a lot of hubbub from the fans about the way he left before, and some rather choice comments that he's allegedly made about the club and the fans, and he wasn't exactly welcomed back with open arms. So I was waiting to see what the reaction of the fans would be when he put in an appearance, and yesterday was when he came out to warm up. But I don't know if Eddie Howe did this on purpose, but if he did, it was a kind of minor genius moment. He sent him out to warm up with Mark Pugh, and Mark Pugh, of course, has the Pugh chant. So if Wiggins came out and people were booing, you wouldn't necessarily know. And if that was what Eddie intended, then he's a cleverer man than I am. Because
genius stroke.
So I think we can guarantee if Wiggins does get in the team, Mark Pugh will be featuring as well. Going to come as a pair. And just one other thing before we talk about the second half was the attendance yesterday. There was a lot of scepticism, negativity on message boards and social media in the days leading up to the game about us not selling all the tickets. In the end, and this was due to the fact we didn't need to have segregation, because as you mentioned, all the Everton fans were in the Ted McDougall stand. It was our highest attendance of the season, and not all of those who came were the usual season ticket holders. A lot of people around me, which is I think pretty much 100% season ticketed, were not the usual faces that I recognised. And I don't know what percentage of the crowd that would have been yesterday, but it would give the club some sort of indication of perhaps the size of stadium that we would need going forward. I don't know if that would be measured, but I thought it said a lot for the potential to grow the Dean Court crowd, that even though we didn't sell out until the day, we sold out before the kickoff, which is the main thing. And it said that, we've got at least another 5,000 or 6,000 people who I think would come on a regular basis, well, if we're in the Premier League, which then would say the stadium wouldn't need to be any bigger than, well, I think 20,000 would be more than enough, wouldn't it?
Well, it's one of those problematic issues, isn't it? I mean, is the groundswell of support because of our current Premiership status? Yes, obviously, we've got more interest as a result. Yes, we're going to be able to sell more tickets as a result. And I think that's the conundrum the club faces at the moment. Do they go for massive ground expansion on the basis that we'll stay up in the Premiership, and then find that we don't quite fill those seats if we're not successful in that mission? I can only speak from my own experience. I know for a fact that getting hold of a ticket right now is extraordinarily difficult for anyone who doesn't have the luxury of the points tally that myself and my son have from attending games last season. So I know that's difficult for other fans that would like to come and see Bournemouth play. Is that because we're in the Premiership? Maybe, but then maybe we need to build on that current popularity and keep those fans. Should we not be successful at remaining in the Premiership? Does that justify all the expense and upheaval of expanding the stadium as it is at the moment? I don't know. I wonder if the club have got it probably about right at the moment. It feels like they're wanting to perhaps concentrate on survival first, and then if we have survival, then address the capacity of the stadium and try to increase that to allow more fans to come and see the team. But I don't know. At the moment, I know there are an awful lot of fans out there, and an awful lot of people, parents who would like to bring their young kids to a game and are currently unable to because they don't have the points needed. I'm lucky enough to be in that first tranche for when tickets are released. I know people that are unfortunately not in that position, and they are unable to come and see any game at all. And in that respect, they're not able to support the team they'd like to. But I don't know. It's a difficult one. I'm not sure what the considerations are with regards to expansion of the stadium and its location in Kings Park. I know there's a very vocal residential group with regards to those points, and they have valid points to bring to the table that need to be considered. But certainly at the moment, we could justify an expansion. We could be selling more tickets, and gate receipts, I guess for us at least, are important. But then survival in the Premiership is probably more important. So I would imagine they've got it about right. We need to get survival first, and then if we've got a first and our second season in the Premier League, then we can start thinking about the ground.
cross and back of the net.
This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear Micropub in Southbourne-on-Sea. No loud music, no TVs, and no ringtones. Just good ale, good conversation, and good times. Just like a pub used to be. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
So, into the second half, I thought we started quite brightly, although the only chance I recall was Sean McDonald, who received the ball after Simon Francis' free kick was cleared and shot from just outside the box, but it was over. Not far over, but over nonetheless. You said you thought McDonald played well yesterday. He was partnered in the centre of midfield. Well, Dan Gosling was there. He's been first choice for a while now. By also Eunan O'Kane. I thought, and this is an ongoing debate with our midfield, that they didn't look entirely dominant in the game, or perhaps with players like Gareth Barry, who's a wily old campaigner, looked to be in charge in the midfield. That it's difficult to say with players like O'Kane, because he featured in League One. He was really good. In the Championship, his chances were limited, and similarly in the Premier League, but he hasn't had the run of games to perhaps play himself into form. We've seen other players come up from League One, some of whom we've already talked about this evening, who've performed, brilliant in the Premier League. I mean, Charlie Daniels was one who had question marks over him at every step, and he's potentially our player of the season so far.
Yeah.
But I think that there is definitely the need going forward to strengthen our options in the centre of midfield, don't you think?
Or did we lack Sermon? I mean, that was maybe the when we talk about fielding a weaker side. Is that the reason why not having him there in the middle of the pitch? I don't know. Eunan O'Kane is for me performed all right. I must confess to being a bit nonplussed. Perhaps that's the biggest criticism.
He had a lucky escape. It happens often enough. A bit later in the second half, he made a bit of a dodgy back pass, which allowed Lukaku to nip in and put the ball in the net, but it was disallowed for offside. But I do like Eunan O'Kane, and I think he probably do really well in a Championship side. But when he comes in and plays, and of course we're against quality opposition yesterday, he looked a bit short. He was at Everton as a youngster, so he would have wanted to do well. But then, he hasn't really had a chance to play himself into form. And some players, like Distan, seem to play really well when they step back into the team and perhaps fade as the games go on, although with him, obviously age is a factor.
Yeah.
Other players, lots of other players, I think O'Kane's probably one of these, needs a few games to hit their top form, but you don't always get that opportunity. Moving on, Everton got their first goal 10 minutes after half time. It was a lucky goal, I thought. It didn't show up so much on the TV, but it looked very clear from where I was. Seamus Coleman passed the ball to Cleverley, who then laid it inside to Ross Barkley, who I thought was excellent yesterday.
Yeah,
I thought he was much better yesterday than he was in the original league game, although he played all right in that and he did score. And he shot low, and it was on target, but it was a way out, and you would have expected it to either been blocked or saved. But it took, from where I was sat, it looked like an enormous deflection.
It was
of Dan Gosling's boot, and that was the reason it went in, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was a massive deflection, completely wrong-footed Federici. And I think everyone in my part of the ground thought exactly the same. Absolutely. I mean, you're right. Ross Barkley was a different class. He was pulling all the strings for Everton, and he played very well. But that particular goal was a stroke of good luck for his part. And it took an obvious and massive deflection for us. We saw it clearly.
It immediately made me think of, I don't know if you remember this, it was a long time ago now, 26 years, when England played in the semi-final of the World Cup and Germany scored, and they had a free kick, Germany, and Paul Parker ran out to charge the ball down. It hit him, looped over Peter Shilton, and then it went.
Maybe not quite that bad, but it was that much of a deflection. It sent it looping over the top of Federici. Yeah, you didn't have a chance really.
Because on the television, you can't. The angle that they took, they've multiple cameras because it was on live on the BBC. You could see on one or two of the angles a deflection, but it looked nowhere near as significant on the TV than it did. Well, I suppose it depends where you're sitting in the ground, but obviously from where us two were sitting, which was different parts of the main stand, that that was the reason that they scored. And then of course, unlucky for us, lucky for them, but what are they going to do? They're hardly going to say, well, actually, we just chalk that one off because, it puts them in control of the game.
Yeah.
And they know, seems almost pointless saying it because it's obvious, that they will probably get through, and a replay at home, at the very least. We did have some epic events in the previous game against Everton, which saw us come back and draw 3-3, a couple of really late goals, but that doesn't happen in most games. And they were in control. Eddie then decided he ought to do something, so he brought Matt Ritchie on for Sean McDonald, and then a little bit later he brought Glenn Murray on for One-Eyed Turvey, who was much quieter in the second half than in the first half. There was a slight change around in the formation of the team. Junior Stanislas went into the centre of midfield and played higher up. Josh King went and played out wide. He looks good out wide, and we started to create some chances. There was it wasn't much of a chance, actually. Glenn Murray got the ball, and it wasn't an ideal situation for him, but he tried to do a couple of little Mark Pugh-like turns and didn't really fool the defence. But he got the shot off, it hit Phil Jagielka and went for a corner. And then the corner, I think, was initially cleared, but found its way back to Junior Stanislas, who then hit a pinpoint cross right onto Dan Gosling's head, and Gosling was completely unmarked, although I think it took him slightly by surprise how good the cross was and the speed of the cross, which is another thing you don't necessarily see on the television. And he headed it straight at Joel, the goalkeeper, looking back, Gosling will think he should have scored that, wouldn't he?
Well, I think you hit it right on the nail there when it took him by surprise. I don't think he was really expecting it that much. It kind of came to him, smack on his head, and he did the instinctive thing, but of course that put it straight into the hands of the keeper. So yeah, unfortunate in that regard.
Yeah, it was a really...
What was the reason, though, do you think, that Iturbe got quiet?
Well, I don't know. He didn't seem to see a lot of the ball in the second half. He was, people were saying he's going to tire. Fair enough, although he wouldn't have been tired immediately after half time because he never featured anything like as much as soon as the second half kicked off, did he?
It's just puzzling to me because he performed so well in the first half and seemed to be giving us a good avenue. And you're quite right, he did seem to taper off and quiet down in the game. So no wonder he got subbed, I suppose. But I'm just puzzled as to why all of a sudden he got quiet and maybe we just started taking a different avenue in the game.
Yeah, or potentially, and I've only just thought of this, Martinez did something at half time to make sure that Everton were marking him more tightly or had more men closer to him when he got the ball. Because I noticed almost every time Lukaku got the ball, we threw a lot of men towards him. It didn't work every time because he's only young, but he certainly knows what he's doing. He scored a load of goals. Well, at every club he's been at. I'm surprised Chelsea didn't hold on to him, but that's another story. So maybe they were a bit surprised by Iturbe in the first half. I was a little bit surprised myself. And then they tweaked something at half time, which meant he wasn't available for the ball as much because if he's being marked more tightly or whatever, then maybe when our players look up and see who's available, they think, well, he's not available. Because I would have thought that on the strength of his performance in the first half, Eddie would have said something along the lines of "give him the ball when you can."
Yeah, crack on, do more of the same. Yeah, so maybe you're right. That's where Everton played smart and did the right thing to cut off the supply to him in the first place. So, but Matt Ritchie made an immediate impact as soon as he came on, and we were glad to see him on the team as soon as he came on the pitch. He started performing well for us. So yeah, it was just my thoughts around Iturbe really. He seemed to be doing so well and then seemed to fade, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think Ritchie had looked a little, when we talked about Charlie Daniels playing maybe a few percentage points below his, below 100%. And I think Ritchie has done as well recently, but very recently, when he's come on in a couple of games, he's looked really on it and really hungry, and maybe the fact that his place in the team hasn't been, one of the first names on the team sheet, which he had been for a long time, and he's sort of kind of feeling that he needs to fight for his place. You talked about competition for places in the middle of the back four, and yeah, that could be having a similar and positive impact on Ritchie in that he's finding that extra little bit that he has got, and we've seen it, to
I'd agree. Yeah, he's when he came on, he seemed like a firebrand. It determined to make an impact on the game. I mean, that's not to say he doesn't do that regularly for us all the time, but he certainly seemed fired up, as if to say, "I didn't start, but you sure well should start with me in the future." So yeah, absolutely. And we all like to see him on the pitch, and he came on and gave it the same sort of bite and tenacity that Iturbe showed. I think McDonald, for me, showed that too as well, really. Sort of a real desire and bite, and that's what, as a game, for the game as a whole, was sometimes past couple of performances we seem to have come out and tried to control the game, and then we end up sitting deep, and the likes of Ritchie and Iturbe seem to be the ones that are coming out and really trying to attack the game and go for it. So yeah, that's definitely what Ritchie came out and showed when he was brought on.
When he had a chance, which unfortunately he didn't even manage to get on target in the end. Josh King, I think King looks, we seem to be blessed in some respects in the wide positions. We've talked about a few of those players, not all of them. Pugh, Stanislas didn't have his best game yesterday, but we've got plenty of options. But King went out wide, and he did similar against Stoke, and he seems to have, the pace, which helps, and he seems to be able to get the ball to the byline and cross it in. And he got past, I think it was Oviedo yesterday, and squared it to Ritchie. Ritchie was under a little bit of pressure, and it was a difficult chance. And he put it over the bar. They said on the telly that, he should have scored. I definitely wouldn't have scored that chance.
That seems real harsh, yeah.
It was difficult. But all of that said, and I know he's playing in a higher division against better players, it was the sort of chance that he'd have gobbled up last season, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I don't know, we seemed a bit limited to chances that were a bit outside the box rather than good chances that were inside the box. We seem to be limited to some long distance ranges. Would he have scored it last season? Maybe, but I don't know. I mean, you got to give credit to an Everton side that came out and performed very well. I believe that they dominated the game for large sections of it and limited our chances to, like I say, relatively long distance efforts. It felt to me.
Yeah, it's strange because I was talking to a friend before the game, and he reminded me that this game against Everton in the fifth round of the FA Cup would have been, even a couple of seasons ago, our biggest game of the season. And if we'd have lost 2-0, we'd have kind of shrugged our shoulders, said never mind, and got back to trying to stay in League One or something.
Yeah.
It goes to show that you quickly adjust your expectations, and that's fair enough because you don't want the players or the fans really to be thinking, well, we're just happy to make up the numbers because that's relegation talk. But at the same time, it's good also to see the bigger picture and where we've come from. And like you say, Everton, I mean, when I saw, that was potentially their strongest team, or the strongest team that Martinez thought he could pick for that game. And it was exactly the same team that lost against West Brom at home, which probably doesn't say much for it being their strongest team.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the bench coming out to warm up, and Leighton Baines and Morales and all of them, and you just think they've just got, such strength, and they're not even anywhere near contending for the title. And yet, they're obviously a very well established Premier League club, and they've got playing resources that I guess at the moment we can't call upon. There's more to it than just having the players, as teams like Man City and Man United are proving this season. But it's no disgrace to lose that game. And would we have got a draw or a win with our A team out? Well, I'd like to think so, but you really don't know, do you?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think we played very well. Like I say, I began the game quite nervous at the fact of how deep we were sitting and allowing Everton to come on to us. But as the game progressed, I really felt we came into our game and started getting possession, passing it around, starting to build that possession into the opposing half. We were trying to catch them on the break a lot, it seemed, to me at least. And my initial nervousness started to subside as we kind of grew into the game. It was an unfortunate that we didn't get the penalty that perhaps we could have got. It was a lucky deflection that gave them their first goal, and those two incidences, I think, changed the game. Had those gone differently, I think we may well have seen a very different result. Yes, they're obviously a quality side, a top team, and they played well today. But yeah, had it not been for those two incidences, I do believe that we played well enough to have got a different result out of the game.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and they got their second goal, which proved to be the kind of final nail in the coffin for our FA Cup hopes this year. Aaron Lennon, who we haven't mentioned yet, but always looks dangerous on the ball. He's quick and he's got skills, and he made a quick and skillful diagonal run into our box, and he could have actually shot himself, but he laid it off to Barkley, who was in a little bit too much space, I thought, in the 18-yard box, and he looked certain to score, but his shot brushed Unino Kane's elbow. And I noticed this from watching it on the replays, and the commentator explaining to me what had happened, and went out for a throw-in. I don't know if you saw any of the television coverage or the match of the day, but you could see afterwards that Barkley was going, ref, handball. That would have been a bit harsh, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I haven't watched any of the TV coverage afterwards, haven't been there for the game, but yeah, I think that would have been a bit tough.
But then that corner ultimately, in fact quickly led to the goal, and from where I was sat, it just seemed that the ball came in low and then was suddenly in this large space in our 6-yard box, and Lukaku booted it in. But then when I watched it, that wasn't exactly what happened, and it looked like it was pre-rehearsed.
Yeah.
And it came in low to Gareth Barry at the near post, and he kind of back heel flicked it and took everybody by surprise, and this gap opened up, and then Lukaku appeared. He may well have been expecting it and booted in. So we are criticised, and rightly so, I think, on the strength of the evidence for our defending at corners. But on this occasion, I thought the only mistake that we actually made when I looked at it properly was we let Lukaku go, and he was actually being marked by Distan in the run up to the goal, and then Lukaku, who obviously knew what was going to happen, pulled off Distan, and then the ball appeared where he wanted it, because it's obviously not always going to work. Gareth Barry's little back flick isn't always, I think it got past Josh King and Charlie Daniels. It isn't always going to get through that kind of human traffic that's in the way, but this time it did, and Lukaku knew what was going to happen. So although it looked bad at first, and it's not great to concede a goal, it wasn't quite as bad, as I initially thought.
No, you're absolutely right. I was right up at that end of the pitch for that corner kick, and it looked exactly like that. It looked like a bit of class, if I'm honest, from Everton. Obviously, a manoeuvre they'd worked out on the training ground, pinged it in, little quick, like you say, sweep of the back heel just to dislodge the path of the ball, and then that just put everybody kind of in a stasis, if you like, and they all just kind of stood and watched to see where on earth it was going. And Lukaku popped up and pinged it in. As you say, it's never always going to fall in the right place for him, but that's the purpose of that manoeuvre, isn't it? It's just to divert the path of the ball, put it where no one's expecting, and then hopefully somebody can latch onto it, and unfortunately they did.
Yeah, it's a slightly more Premier League version of our step-over corner, which we've been using, well, seems like forever. We've only seen it a couple of times this season. It did work in one match. I think that might have been against Man United, but yeah, nobody had to flick it behind them with that one. You just kind of step over the ball and then hope that whoever's the nominated person can whack it into the goal. Maybe we should start using it again. We haven't seen it for a while. But the game really was effectively over at that point, and I don't recall any more chances, possibly for either team. Adam Smith came on for Dan Gosling, but he didn't see a lot of the ball. I was expecting us to kind of throw the kitchen sink in the last 5 to 10 minutes, but there was never any moment when, sometimes, quite often in FA Cup ties, one-off games, you get a corner and then the goalie comes up and all that sort of thing. I don't think we did get a corner in that spell. Federici certainly didn't come up. The game kind of just came to a bit of a quiet end, didn't it?
Yeah, it petered out. There was, like you say, there was no throwing the kitchen sink of it. We didn't throw everybody up, pump it long, and get everybody up the pitch and go for the goal. But I think that's just more in the way that we normally play the game, isn't it? And try and pass the ball and work our chances. But I guess we were 2-0 down, and had it been 2-1, I think you might have seen more of that kitchen sink.
Yeah, we'll have to save the kitchen sink for next season, or possibly the final game of this season.
Indeed.
So we're out. No more FA Cup this year. Got to the 5th round, which is the first time, I think, since 1989. So not bad. Not
bad. Happy with that.
Yeah. Maybe in future we might go even further. And subsequent to the game, we've discussed it a bit tonight. There's the disappointment, and some fans, and I've definitely got some sympathy for this point of view, are quite frustrated at the lack of or the perceived lack of taking the competition seriously and charging the fans full price for tickets but not playing the A team and all that sort of thing. But anyway, regardless of any of that, the crucial thing now is that we've got to try and stay in the Premier League, and we've got a chance, to put everything right by staying in the division. The next game is against Watford away. There's going to be a bit of needle in that, so I'm going to that, and I'm expecting a less than warm welcome from the Watford fans. I didn't see this yesterday, but somebody told me that they featured their ground Vicarage Road on Football Focus, and they've got a picture of Bournemouth celebrating with the Championship trophy in the Watford dressing room to kind of motivate, I assume, the Watford players to remember to play, to the last second of the last game of the season, and not let anything like that happen to them again. So that picture will be featuring quite large in their thoughts this week, and they'll be desperate to get revenge. And they've done well this season, Watford, and it's a tough game.
Yeah.
But we've done better away from home this season, haven't we? Yeah,
exactly. Like you say, that Watford are doing really well. It will be a tough game, but then somehow we seem to almost perform better on the road, it seems. So yeah, fingers crossed we can get something from that game. I think we sorely need it.
And my main superstitious gripe about that game is that it's still February when that's played, and it seems like the last few years, certainly the last couple of years, we've had terrible Februaries. We always seem to lose more games than we win. I saw somewhere, I think on Twitter today, someone said that it was on this day last year that we lost away to Brentford 3-1, and I recall in previous years losing 5 games in a row around February time. So the sooner February's out of the way, the better. There's an extra day this year. I was hoping, because this was a leap year, it might slightly change our luck in February, but it seems to be the same old story. Obviously, that is, illogical to think that the month of the year can have any impact on the results, but it does seem to have a a rather worrying trend.
We all like a bit of superstition in our football game, don't we? Maybe the early arrival of Easter this year will henceforth bring a sooner turnaround to our fortunes.
A resurrection. All right then, Paul. Well, thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast tonight and welcoming me into your home. It's been lovely to visit, and enjoy the rest of the season.
Cheers, Mike. Thank you. You too.
Great to hear from Paul there, and a special thanks to him as he only stepped in at the last minute. Now, as you may have already heard, my status as the planet's leading AFC Bournemouth podcaster will soon be coming to an end, as later this week, Sam Davis and Sean Barker are launching the first episode of Back of the Net, which, unlike the one-eyed dog and pony effort heard here each week, will focus on many different aspects of the club, and as such, should complement this show in much the same way that Phil Bowyer provided the perfect foil for Ted McDougall. I'm certainly looking forward to listening, so if you want to join me, you can subscribe via iTunes and all the usual podcast channels. Looking forward to the trip into the Hornets' nest next weekend, so let's hope we can draw out their sting and get back to winning ways. So up cherries in all departments, and goodbye! The White's Bear Micropub on Southbourne Grove is a proud supporter of AFC Bournemouth and sponsor of all departments. Head to the Bear for real ales, locally produced food, and plenty of good conversations about the Cherries. Check out www.thewhitesbear.co.uk.